In a world where the written word is dying, two women risk it all to educate the masses on literature.
Good morning, Richfield. I'm Francesca D'Onofrio.
And I'm Nicole Zanfabro.
And you are watching
Lit Chat.
Today we'll be doing an in-depth literary analysis on The Bell Jar, a novel written by Sylvia Plath.
To add to the fun, we will be analyzing the text through the feminist school of literary theory and will address some of the typical questions associated with it. Now, you may ask, what is the feminist school of literary theory?
Well, feminist criticism is concerned with the ways in which literary...
Oh, Francesca. No. You always get baffled on the show.
I know, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys, it's embarrassing. Feminist criticism is concerned with the ways in which literature reinforces or undermines the economic, political, social, and psychological oppression of women.
This school is this. Now you got me doing it.
Oh my god, it's contagious.
Bless you. This school of theory looks how aspects of our culture are inherently what's that word?
Patriarchal?
Patriarchal, there we go.
Patriarchal. Okay. This critique serves to explore the explicit and implicit misogamy in male writing about women.
Feminist criticism is also concerned with less obvious forms of marginalization, such as the exclusion of women writers from the traditional literary canon.
Unless the literary, critical, or historical point of view is feminist, there is a tendency to underrepresent the contribution of women writers.
Now that we have educated our audience on some basic information pertaining to our topic today, the Lit Chat team hopes the viewers uses this information to infer responses to our typical questions. Francesca, why don't you start off with the first question?
It will be my pleasure. Our first question here today is, why do I always do this? What does the work say about women's creativity? I would have to start my answer off by saying nothing good. Plath was pursuing a man's career in a time where women were merely housekeepers, mothers, wives, and secretaries. The Bell Jar does not paint women of creative nature in a positive light. Women who were creative, confident, and independent, such as myself, often got pushed into the role of mother or caregiver by the constricting provincial society.
An article written by critic Paul West contains a statement which leads us to believe or wonder, does society only care about her struggle for creative freedom as a woman because it was tragic? He states, had Sylvia Plath been ugly and not have died in so deliberate a manner, I wonder if she would have the standing she has. He implies that her looks, or simply her being a woman, and suicide after a life of struggle for her recognition and equality in her creative endeavors in what makes her famous. West negates actual merit in her work, attributing her literary success for the woe is me attitude that most women are portrayed with.
Women's creativity in the novel was not of concern to most, and their role as mothers was much more important in society's eyes. Due to the skewed ideals of their era, Esther begins to believe that she cannot be a mother, wife, and poet. Creative oppression faced by women like Esther in the 1950s was partially due to societal expectations of them to embody femininity. This leads us to our next question. What constitutes masculinity and femininity?
Well, a good woman was supposed to submissively accept her role as a mother and wife while simultaneously shelving her ambitions to do so. The image most associated with femininity and the ideal woman is this one. You would see this type of woman in the 50s sitcoms. She cleans the house, makes dinner, tends to her family, and does all of it with a big smile, heels, pearls, and an apron.
Needless to say, Esther hardly fits into this mold or idea of a perfect woman. Personally, I feel these two quotes by Miss Willard embody the ideals of masculinity and femininity in the novel. What a man wants is a mate, and what a woman wants is infinite security. And what a man is an arrow to the future, and what a woman is a place for the arrow to shoot from.
Just from those two statements alone, the reader is given a strong image of a woman being an asset to a man's success without actually accomplishing much themselves. A man wants a mate, and a woman wants and needs infinite security. So since he wants someone around, he does her a favor and gives her what she gets, plus safety. It makes me angry to even speak on the portrayal of women as the instrument of man in this novel.
I would have to agree. The most offensive comment, though, was the former, comparing a woman to the place for an arrow to shoot from. This quote clearly depicts femininity as the act of being helpful when asked and waiting to be needed otherwise. Without the base, the arrow can't shoot off, yet nobody cares about the base, focusing on the flight of the arrow. In turn, if the arrow fails and doesn't go as far as it should, the base will be faulted.
Esther realizes this and comments on it. Her thought further isolates her from other typical women in the 50s. She says, "I knew that in spite of all the roses and kisses, what a man secretly wanted when the wedding service ended, and for the wife, to flatten out underneath his feet like Mrs. Willard's kitchen mat." This quote was in relation to Esther's witnessing Mrs. Willard's weave a beautiful rug to only destroy in a day by using it as a kitchen mat. A solid image in the 1950s ideal of femininity can be researched through the adaptation of a quote I saw on a poster once. "A good woman is like a candle. They consume themselves to light the way for others."
Opportunities for women who wanted to pursue a career and live their own lives were made available. Although these opportunities were present, women's identities were solely defined by their relationship with men. Another quote by Esther adequately describes the irony of women's choice, or the idea of them having them, and reinforces my statement while emphasizing the pedestaling of men at the time. The quote is said by her after she finds out Buddy had an affair and still wants her to remain a virgin until they get married. She thinks this isn't fair and seeks out advice from her jaded schoolmates. They see nothing wrong with it since they're not married, and they encourage her to listen to him. Esther says, "All I heard was how fine and clean Buddy was, and how he was the kind of person a girl should stay fine and clean for."
The other women encourage her to stay with him and also keep her virginity despite his actions. The masculine character is marked by his dominance over his woman and career. Buddy amplifies the 1950s male ideal of masculinity when he tells Esther she better get used to it when she does not like seeing him naked.
Our most visual image of masculinity would have to be a man as an arrow into the future. Basically, if you dehumanized every female you met, you were doing it right. I mean, they just get no credit for anything that they did.
I really don't think we should. Yeah. But let's just move on. How do characters embody or negate these traits? I will start it off with characters who embody the ideal of femininity and masculinity respectively. Mrs. Greenwood, Esther's mother, is a character who embraced femininity but accepted that Esther did not. She encouraged her daughter to write but also to remain a virgin and learn shorthand just in case. Mrs. Willard also clings to the feminine persona, embracing her role as the place from the arrow to shoot from and encouraging Esther to do so as well. Buddy embodies masculinity through his traits as well as his actions. He is attractive, athletic, religious, a family man, and an educated man employed as a doctor. All of these things were sought after in a husband and were characteristic of masculinity. He represents everything Esther should want but does not.
Characters who negate aspects of femininity are Dr. Nolan, Philomena Guinea, and Esther Greenwood herself. Dr. Nolan is Esther's doctor at the private mental hospital who is progressive and unconventional. She promotes Esther's unusual thinking. Philomena Guinea is a wealthy elderly woman who gives Esther a scholarship to attend college and later pays for her stay in the private mental hospital. Philomena negates femininity because she never remarried and encourages Esther's dreams, giving her the tools to achieve them. Finally, Esther, the character who rejects the feminine persona the most. She has no desire to be a mother or wife and does not understand why someone would give up all of their goals to do so. She is more of a masculine character as she holds her own values to importance and actively rejects the attempts of society to make her more feminine. This can correlate to our next question. Do characters take on traits from opposite genders? How so? How does this change others' reactions to them?
In the novel, Esther says, "The trouble was I hated the idea of serving men in any way. I wanted to dictate my own thrilling letters." Esther wants to be a writer and a poet. Many females didn't write, and if they did, they weren't taken seriously. Doreen is another character that takes on traits from the opposite gender in the sense of she doesn't care about a man's opinion. She does what she wants for herself as long as she's happy doing it. Socially, she's an outcast of society. Doreen wants to have fun and not have to worry about getting married, having children, and everything that comes with it. She'd rather enjoy the nightlife with different people and expand her horizons. Her characteristics don't add up as a typical woman for the time.
For our next question we have, how are male and female roles defined? Dodo Conway is the perfect example. She's a Catholic woman with 6 children and a 7th on the way. She's a stay-at-home mom, cares for all her children, and tends to every need, and she's always there for her family. Esther disagrees with what Dodo does. This shows a difference in Esther, not portraying the typical housewife. She's an outcast, doesn't want to be married with children. She says this explicitly in relation to Miss Willard's remark, "The last thing I wanted was infinite security, and to be the place an arrow shoots off from. I wanted change and excitement to shoot off in all directions of myself like a colored arrow from a 4th of July rocket."
For our male role, we have Buddy Willard, Esther's college boyfriend. He is an athletic, intelligent, good-looking man who graduated from Yale and went to medical school. He is a man who thinks women shouldn't try to take on a man's job, like Esther wanting to be a writer. He also assumes she will give up her poetic ambitions to become a mother.
Another male role is Dr. Gordon, Esther's psychiatrist. He's described as a good-looking man and has an attractive family. Esther thinks he's full of himself. The male role is typical. He has a well-paying job that can support his family without his wife having to worry. She can be the stay-at-home mom and cares for their perfect family.
For our final question, how is the relationship between men and women portrayed?
When Buddy and Esther were together, she believed Buddy was the type of man that would make her feel safe and take interest in her opinion. Esther states, "My trouble was I took everything Buddy Willard said to me as the honest-to-God truth." Early in their relationship, Esther idolizes Buddy as a moral and intellectual guide. She later soon realizes that he laughs about her wanting to be a writer.
He also has an affair with a waitress, which brings up the male dominance of the relationship. He's superior of Esther, which makes her distant of him. She doesn't want to be tied down and have a family like Dodo Conway, where she's on her hands and knees for all their needs. Esther doesn't want to pretend her family is perfect, her children are perfect, and she has a perfect life, like all the families that surround her.
Well, look at that. It looks like we're out of time for today.
See you next time
On
Lit Chat. Bye.
I'm still your host, Francesca.
Me
D'Onofrio.
too. See you later.
I'm still your host.
I am too.
But mainly me.
No, just me.
But
no,
most,
but just me.
I'm
It's me.
I'm mostly the host. I'm mostly the hostless.